What up, movie lovers? This is Jacob Bartley here, the host of the Apocaflix Movie News Podcast, and we are here to do our audio review of a movie called The Witch. For those of you who don't know, it's a horror film that was released, I think it was two weekends ago, or last weekend, right?
Last weekend.
It was released last weekend, and you might have known it's getting a lot of buzz right now. Having a lot of people are praising the film, but not everyone is loving it. So we're going to review the movie, talk about our positives, our negatives, and we have 2 new segments added to our audio reviews, and one of them is called the WTF moment. So it's just one moment in particular in the film. It could be 10 seconds or 5 minutes, just one moment that either shocked you, that you thought was amazing, that you hated, anything that just was whoa to you, and it can be positive or negative. And then also we're going to do a segment called Would You Recommend It? So talking about would we recommend the film in general and what type of demographic we would recommend it to. So without further ado, let's jump into our review of The Witch. Joining me today is Jake Berlin. He watched the movie with me. So Jake, say hello to the listeners first of all. How are you doing?
What's up, listeners?
And so, general impressions. Did you like The Witch?
Okay, so we had talked about this after watching the movie.
Yeah.
We both came out a little different than when we were expecting to come out of it. And we had talked about it a little bit. And
we kind of didn't know what to say.
Yeah, we were. It was a little bit
theater.
awkward thing coming out of theater. But after taking a week of thinking about it, I enjoyed it. I didn't like when I first walked out because I think I walked in expecting something completely different.
Yeah.
And it threw me off. But after catching my breath, thinking about it, it's a really, really well done film. Really well done film. And the pacing, the characters, the story, the fact that they talk in this old English and it's all legit. It's super. It's what a film should be in this kind of genre. I'm all for the scary, jump out of your seat, peek around the corner horror films. Cool. But I'm one who likes the psychological horrors that creep you out more, that make you think, that terrify you, that give you this frightening feeling. And that's kind of what The Witch did. And it was much more than just that, of course, but
we'll get into your positives and negatives. For me, look, I liked the movie. And like you, coming out of the theater, I didn't know what to think. And I had heard, I don't know if you know who Clark Wolf is,
yes.
but she's a movie pundit, and she's on Collider Movie Talk here and there. And so she's a huge horror fan. And I watched Movie Talk before I saw The Witch, and she's like, look, guys, this is not your typical horror movie. It's like a real movie. It has real characters, and the setting they happen to be in is just like a horror setting. And so I kind of took that with me going to the movie. So I was expecting not to be a traditional horror film, and I liked that. But like you said, there's some weird stuff that goes down in this movie. So leaving the theater, I was like, what? But overall, look, I do appreciate the filmmaking, and I admire it, but the movie wasn't exactly for me. But I acknowledge that. I acknowledge its brilliance, so I do like it. It's a really good movie, but it's just not for me. So those are my general impressions of it. So Jake, let's get into it. So what exactly did you like about this movie? What are your positives?
Well, for the characters were really, really well done. I thought from the parents to I forget the girl's name.
It's a weird name.
Yeah, it's a weird name, but
it's an odd name.
The girl in the movie who's the main character, she did a really, really well done job.
Yeah, she was great.
And the character itself was really a lot of range to go off of, and so the characters are one. The story
Her name
itself,
was Thomason.
Thomason, okay,
Yeah.
so Thomason. The story itself was strong as well. Pilgrim era. They move from the settlement. They go and they place themselves next to this wood, and this witch lives in the woods, and there's stories and whatnot, and it's really creepy feeling and whatnot. And that's kind of another positive for me is the creep factor. Like I said, I love horror movies that give you this really creepy feeling, not just the scare around the corner horrors that we see a lot more nowadays. I like something that will make me think and make me frightened when I go home leaving the theater. Like, it really makes me think about it. And that's kind of what The Witch gave me. It's like, what would I do in that situation? Like, that's what scares me. So that's definitely a positive for me. The performances were really well. I thought, for a lot of mostly unknown actors and actresses, really well job. And for the director too, someone I've never heard of before, I thought he directed the movie fabulously. The script was well done, like I said before.
Robert Eggers.
Okay, Robert Eggers, yeah.
And he wrote it too by himself.
Yeah, and the fact that he wrote it all in this old English tone and they speak in it is very strong. It makes it that much more authentic. I think it's a perfect word for it. It's very authentic. So those are kind of just the main positives for me.
Yeah, for me, look, the main objective of a horror movie, and even though this isn't a traditional horror movie, it is a horror movie. It's just more of an old school horror movie.
Yes.
I remember I talked to you about The Shining, and totally different movies, but the way the score is used is one of the most frightening things in The Shining, and same with this movie. Like, they can just show you a pan out scene of the forest, and like just the score makes it creepy, or like just a picture of the farm, or like a visual of the farm or of the house.
The tension builds.
It builds the tension. So I think the score really drives this movie and makes it creepy. But the main thing I want, just like a comedy, you want to laugh. A horror movie, I want to be scared. And there was a few times in this movie where I wanted to look away. Like, I wanted to close my eyes. I was so freaking frightened. One in particular, by the way, this is kind of a spoilers review. We're not going to get too deep into spoilers like we would a comic book movie or something, but there might be some spoilers, so some little minor spoilers. So if you don't want to hear any, I would stop this right now and continue listening after you've seen the movie. But so now you've been warned. But so at the end, there's some character talking to her, like some deep voice, and he's kind of standing behind her, but they don't really see him. That scene, I was so freaking scared, man. I didn't tell you, but
that's awesome.
I wanted to close my eyes.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And I didn't, because I don't want to look like a weenie in front of you. But I was so frightened. So from that point, I really enjoyed the film. It creeped me the hell out, and I was super frightened throughout the whole movie. And the performances were great. And I just love how believable they made it so realistic that it was in this time era. And like you said, the dialogue was so on point. There were no slips in the dialogue as that old-fashioned English. And like we've seen, we see like these generic versions of movies trying to be in the old English times, and that it's not as believable. Like, I watched Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies recently, and while I really enjoyed the movie, like, it's really fun and interesting, like, they're not taking the old-fashioned type of speaking that seriously. This movie makes you believe it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That's one of the great things it does. So for me, those are some of the main positives: the performances, the environment, the setting, the creepiness. It did its job of scaring the hell out of me, and just the old-style fashion of the dialogue and the setting was great. So those are some of my positives. But no movie is perfect. Definitely, there were some negatives for me in this movie. But Jake, I want to start with you. What do you thought could have been done better about The Witch?
Well, I think the one that really, really stands out to me, it was kind of confusing in parts. There were some confusing moments, like with Thomason. Was she a witch the entire time? Was she not a witch the entire time? Like, we talked about it coming out of theater. It was kind of confusing at the end of the movie, and the ending, for one, is kind of like a whack moment. But
crazy.
Again, and then another one is the fact, or the witch was kind of only popped up here and there, and it was kind of like it jumped a little bit back and forth, and that kind of threw me off a little bit. I thought some of the actions by the parents were a little odd, like they didn't really make sense sometimes. The two kids, the twins, were a little weird for me at times too. And whatever happened with them, we don't know. We can kind of guess maybe. But I would say, it jumped a little bit. There were parts where I was confused on what happened. I think, you talked about the guy standing behind her that creeped you out. I was a little confused there. Like, who is this guy? Where did he come from?
I think
it was
kind of to assume that he's the devil.
Yeah,
right?
kind of like, but
she signed something.
Yeah, and it was never.
So she signed her
never
soul
really
over
like
to the devil.
They never really paid it off, I guess. Like, we never really saw anything from it.
I thought they were going to show him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I want it or not, because I'm more creeped out that they didn't show him.
Okay, interesting. I guess we had just, different feelings towards it, but and another one, the ending was a little like, what? Like, it was kind of took a left turn for me a little bit. But I can see why people would like it. I mean, it's totally, I understand why. But yeah, those would be some of the negatives. The fact that it kind of confused me here and there, a little jumpy, and the ending, like the last 20 minutes or so.
No, I agree with you on some of those. I do think it was a lot of confusing parts. Like, one thing would happen and you'd be like, wait, what? Like, where did that come from? Or what did that mean? It's kind of, for me, I think I would, not that I really want to watch it again. I would watch it with somebody who hasn't seen it yet. You know, I would definitely do that. So I'll probably will watch it again, like when it comes out on Redbox or something. But I kind of want to get a better understanding of some of the things because it was really hard to follow.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, wait, that kind of contradicts that, but then that doesn't even make sense.
Well, it's like
a lot of different things in the movie.
And it's nowhere near this scale or anything in this movie, but it's like watching Interstellar for the first time.
Yeah.
You have to be able to go back and really understand everything going on.
I thought they could have been a lot more clear on things. So for me, Gio knows this about me. I like open endings or like things left up to your interpretation or your imagination when it's done really well, but it's rare to me. Like, I don't, like, for example, I didn't like the ending of Birdman. For those of you who've seen Birdman, it's kind of an open ending. It leaves it up
Very
to you.
much,
You decide what you think happened. And I feel like The Witch tried to do that with several different things. Like, was she a witch the whole time? What happened to the twins? Like, for me, I don't think this was the filmmaker's intention, but to me, from my perspective watching it, I feel like it's lazy. It's like, I don't want to explain how this happens, so let's just let the audience decide. And I don't like that unless it's done really, really well. So for me, there was like 3 or 4 things that the director and the same guy kind of wanted to leave up to the audience to decide, and I didn't think it was done that well. I'm just going to be straight up. I was a little bit bored on some of the dialogue scenes.
I would have to agree with you.
Especially, look, the woman who played the mother, I believe it's Kate Dickey. She did a phenomenal job in her performance. But the way the character was written, she was not a likable character at all. And she would just go off on these long dialogue pieces. And I was like, all right, come on, let's get going. And I got a little bit bored with that. So yeah, definitely all these things, brought down my excitement and my enjoyment of the film. But overall, I did like it. But yeah, those negatives, brought it down a little bit for me. So we're going to move on to this new segment that I have in our movie reviews called the WTF moment. And there's definitely several moments in this movie that could hold this title. But I'm going to start with you, Jake. I have a couple in mind in case you take the one that I might be thinking of. But so what was your WTF moment for The Witch?
I think the one that really stood out to me, I mean, there were quite a few left turns in this movie, like a few of them. But the one that really stood out to me because it affected me the most, I guess you could say, is The Witch and the Baby.
Oh, wow.
And
I thought you were going to say the very ending.
No, like the ending was like a total WTF moment. But watching what happened with the baby and the witch, like, as full spoilers here.
That was one of mine too.
The witch steals this baby.
Well, you kind of know that from the trailers.
Yeah, steals this baby, but then you see what happens to the baby. The witch has to take its blood to make itself younger. Like she regenerates herself basically.
She cut open the baby. Like, they don't show it, but they see her hold the knife up to the baby, and then it kind of
and then she starts bathing in the blood.
And she bathes in the blood, and then we see her later, and she's young and beautiful.
Yeah,
she had to bathe in the blood of the youth and innocence to be young again. But then we see her not too long after, and she's old again.
Totally old.
It doesn't last that long.
Yeah, so I mean, that was a big WTF moment for me, just because seeing that happen to such a young child.
That's early in the movie too.
Yeah, that happened with the first 20 minutes or so. Yeah. And so, I mean, there's so many more, and you're going to touch on those, but for me, that is definitely the WTF moment.
Just real quick on your moment. At first, I was so bizarre. I was like, what the hell?
I was the same way. I didn't know what was going on.
When I think about it, I applaud them for doing that, because
it's brave.
I hate when films are afraid to, cross these boundaries. And in this setting, in this story, that would make sense. She has to bathe in the blood of the innocents to, maintain her youth for maybe a couple days. And I applaud the writer and the director for doing that. But, I thought you were going to choose the very ending. So the very ending has, like, multiple women around a fire, like, praising the devil, and they
Dude,
just start flying up in the air.
It's freaking whack.
That is definitely a WTF moment. And I was gonna choose the one you chose because I thought you were gonna choose that, but I'll go with a little different. So they were focusing on what was the animal? Was it a
goat?
A goat the whole time, and I didn't notice this, but in the poster for the goats on the poster, so I should have known the goat had a lot more to do with it. But and if you notice in the beginning of the movie, the twins are like playing around with the goat, and it gets out, and the father puts it back in there. But so, there's a time in the movie where like there's just a bunch of dialogue and it's like family problems, and then like the father doesn't know who's possessed, like the older daughter or the twins, and he has them locked up. And when he walks out, like the whole the warehouse is like torn apart, and obviously the witch came, the twins are gone, the girl's out there, and then that goat comes and rams him a couple times.
That came out of nowhere.
Kills him.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool, but like at the same time I was confused. So that was definitely a WTF moment for me. But it was really creepy. Like, was she living through the goat? Like, was she controlling the goat? I assume so. But yeah, that goat is so creepy. And when it killed the dad, spoiler obviously, that was a WTF moment for me. Obviously there was a lot of them. The very end scene, the baby and the witch scene, the scene with the devil guy standing behind her, was a WTF moment for me. It scared me.
Because that came out of nowhere, and that has to do with the goat, because she was talking to the goat.
Dude, I was scared, so scared during that scene.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's wrap it up. So let's see, Jake. Would you recommend this movie to general audiences or just like a specific demographic? And just overall, would you recommend it?
I would recommend it, but it's to a certain audience.
Okay.
It's the general audience will not like this film because it's very specific, and I think it's goes towards certain demographic. If you like horror movies, then this is the type of movie for you. If you like stepping out of your comfort zone and watching something completely different, this is totally a movie for you. But I think people who go to the theater, only so many times a year looking for, that go watch, the summer movies or the big blockbusters or whatever it is, they're not going to want to watch this movie. They're not going to like it because it's so different. So yes, I would recommend it, but it's definitely to a specific audience. And it's those true film fans because
for sure.
It's a true film. It's a real film.
Yeah.
It's not, like you said, it's not afraid to go where it needs to go. But yeah, I definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, I would recommend it too, but to a specific audience. It's not for everybody. I've had one of my family members text me, "Have you seen The Witch yet?" And at the time I hadn't. And I was like, "No, but I'm hearing great things." And they were like, "It sucked." And I'm like, okay, because like you said, general audiences it's not gonna resonate with general audiences. But if you're a film fanatic and you love classic film and classic horror movies, you're gonna love this movie, I think. So it's definitely for people. And you said horror fans, but horror fans need to keep in mind, but that it's not a paranormal activity movie. It's not an Insidious movie. This is a legit like film, like you said, and it has some edgy things in there that if you can't handle really scary things or like really out there things, then it's probably not for you. But if you can, then I definitely think you would enjoy this film. So, like we do with every movie review, we're going to give it a score out of 10. Jake, what do you give The Witch?
I thought about this real hard, and because of the last week or so, I've really thought about liking it more and more. I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. And I think it deserves that. The storytelling is fantastic. Yes, there are flaws, but if you go in expecting one thing, don't expect coming out expecting that. You have to go in with an open mind and just not expect to get jumped scared out of your seat. It's a true film, and it's one of the most truest films of the last so many months. And something in February, that's real. That's pretty cool to get in February. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my 7.5.
Yeah, my original score was going to be a 7, but in the process of discussing this movie in this review, I've appreciate it more, and I actually bumped it up to a 7.5, and I decided that before you gave your score. So yeah, I give The Witch a 7.5 out of 10. As you can tell, it may not be one of our favorite movies of the year, but Jake and I really appreciate this movie for what it is, and we recognize its positives and what it did and how it really captured that classic horror movie feel, and that's what we really appreciated. So I want to thank Jake Berlin for joining me today, man. Where can they find you online?
Twitter, Instagram at Qui-Gon Jake. Check out the Padawan podcast, man. It's all Star Wars podcast.
Oh, definitely. And I'm your host, Jacob Bartley. You can find me on Twitter at @JacobBartley_ and on this Apocaflix Movies YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please hit that like button. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, we'll see you.